What's up, guys? If I sound a little hoarse, I am a little hoarse. I have a cold. Sorry if I sound crazy. I think I sound crazy. What are you gonna do? This is the Sony NWA 35, and I did want to talk about it for a little bit. Mm, for a few reasons. One of the reasons is I think this is a brilliant device. The second reason is that there's not a lot of reviews of it on YouTube. And I don't really understand why. I mean, this is something that you can buy in stores, like here in Canada, for example, in a lot of different stores. Canada Computers, you can buy it through Best Buy. It's all over the place, and I think it serves as a niche purpose nowadays, as do most apps. They're for people that are audiophiles like you and I, but not necessarily for people that are laymen because they have their phones, right? So I guess the question is, why would you want to have a DAP when you have a phone? And for one thing, me personally, my use case is that I hate phones. I hate the sound of phones. I hate the interference that you can get from Wi-Fi connections. And I hate the buzzing and the ringing and the updates and the apps and all this stuff getting in the way of my pure music enjoyment. Maybe potentially you can eke out a little bit of a better sound quality out of a DAP than you can out of a phone. But then again, some of the mid-tier phones, in terms of their noise levels and distortion levels, are on par with DAPs in most cases. Definitely some of the top tier phones like iPhone and the LG V30, the V20, the V10, G7, the G6 Korean, and things like that are probably, maybe some of them are better than this device even, but in terms of distortion, black level, background level, I should say, noise, etc. Um, but this thing, there's just not a lot of reviews, and I don't understand why. So I'm going to go over the interface a little bit and talk about some of the things I like about it and some of the things I don't like. Um, First of all, I love the interface. I think it's really, really cool. It's pretty snappy. It's pretty fast. The quality of the screen is very good. Um, and I mean, there's really perceptually very little difference between the screen quality on this and the screen quality on my iPhone SE or my iPad um, Pro and things like that. It's perceptually hard to see their the angles are good. I mean, you don't really see too much of a washout when you move it around and stuff like that. And I think it does more than enough. I would say that, so I'm going to go into artist here. This is one of the things that I maybe don't like. I'm going to go to these guys, the 1978ers, and um, oh, okay. I was going to show you that one thing that I had seen is it's wiped out my bookmarks. Maybe that's just a bug, but I just powered this thing off and powered it back on again, and it kept the bookmarks. So I guess there's potentially a bug in here where it could wipe out your bookmarks if it crashes or something like that. I'm not sure. But it kept them this time. So I was going to say that it wipes out your bookmarks when you reboot the device, but that's not true. It apparently kept them this time, so that's cool. Um, so let's talk about some of the things you can do with it. There's a four-way sort of communication here. You can go up to go into different things like your linearizer. You have the surround sound ability, and you can choose different types of surround sounds: studio, club, concert hall, matrix. This is just DSP, digital signal processing, and just kind of playing with that. Dynamic normalizer, which sort of normalizes the volume between different albums you have, for example. The equalizer is quite good. I have one. You can set up a couple of customs. Like this is my custom that I use with the Meze 99 Classics. Sorry, I have the Neo over ears, and they are pretty bassy, so I like to drop off some bass. And then I have another custom, and potentially that's one that I would use with the Shozi Hibiki, for example, which is a little bit light on the bass, and I'll bass up a little bit. So it's cool to have that option to customize a couple of equalizers, and then you have your default sort of presets, which I don't really use. But the equalizer is quite good. It's only the 6 bands, but a lot better than a lot of other things offer in terms of its ability to change the sound. And we'll go back up again. So we have obviously just search by artist, search by album. You have your folder search for when you potentially can't find an artist and are not sure how to group it. For example, and this is kind of a weird thing, I had added a new Jimi Hendrix album, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So and then I looked in the folder, it was there, and then I realized that they were, for some reason, just with Jimmy, they were sorting by last name. Now maybe that has to do with the tagging on the actual MP3, but it confused me a little bit, and I was like, all right, well, where the hell's this new Electric Ladyland album? And there, of course, it was under Hendrix instead. But if you don't want to, kind of rack your brain over shit like that, and you remember which folder you put it in, then you can just kind of sort by folder. That's something that pretty much all DAPs have. But it's a nice option to have nevertheless. Search by genre, oftentimes that's not tagged very well. You have your high-res search. Now, I do find that with the high-res search, there's, for example, this is actually Simon and Garfunkel, not Tom Petty, but it is not sorting. I only have a couple of DSD albums, so it is able to determine where my DSDs are, and I think this is correct. I only have the 3 DSD albums, but it's not finding all my FLAC files, and I don't really understand the rhyme or reason behind that. It's found a couple. This is an official one. Well, actually, no, this is an official ALAC that I downloaded from the Bandcamp for evidence, but because I bought the album. But then there's other FLACs that I've downloaded illegally, but that it can't find, and I'm not sure why it's doing that. So there is kind of a couple of weird anomalies, but well, and you do have an FM radio too, which is something that's kind of nice to have if you like listening to different stations. I'm not going to say that it is always the best experience because it uses your the cable for your headphones as an antenna. So depending on where you are and how well that's working out, you may or may not have a fuzzy broadcast, let's say. So anyways, there is that option though, which is cool as well. Let's talk about some other things I like. So I'll go into a Tupac album, and it's just a regular iTunes AAC, but so I'm playing the record, and I want to play around with the sound a little bit. Cool. I would go into settings, and then in here I have my playback settings. But the one thing I can do, you have your output setting, device settings, things like that, and you can change your brightness levels, which will potentially prolong your battery life. Mine's running low here. Clear Audio Plus is something that is DSP that kind of works with some albums but doesn't with others. But you can turn it on if you want to. It will create more of a holographic soundstage. And that could be cool depending on the record, depending on the quality of the recording and stuff like that. I've found that it works for some things, and for other things it doesn't. So there's that, right? And then you can go in here and turn your equalizer on and off. And then you have these other things, your DC phase linearizer, surround sound dynamic normalizer, and all these things are DSP things as well. Some of them will make marginal differences. Other ones you can hardly notice the difference at all. So play around with it. It's nice to have the options. I would say if you're going to turn some of these things on, then it's going to eat up your battery life faster. And that brings me to another point. The battery life on this thing is potentially better than anything else you can find for any other DAP. I think that Sony's battery life is probably the best that I've seen, and I don't see anyone rivaling it right now. I know FiO's come out with a couple of DAPs that are doing pretty well in terms of battery life. I'm not sure if they're hitting the sound quality levels that Sony is, but I haven't heard them all, so that's unfair to say. But an important point is if battery life is important to you, then this thing is probably right up there at the top. But the Sony interface is used basically on all their DAPs. So this is kind of I wanted to kind of present this to everyone so that they knew that what they were getting into with WM1A, WM1Z, the ZX300, all the higher end ones. Well, those ones are thousands of dollars, especially the Z. Holy crap! But anyways, it's a cool interface. I think the difference between this one and this is the Sony NWA35 is that it doesn't have some of the sound settings. I think that the newer firmware has like a vinyl processor. I'm not sure how that's going to sound, but it could be cool with certain recordings. So there's that as well. How's the sound? I don't think that there is a huge difference between sound quality in DAPs. Now owning 4 or 5 of them, I've sold a few of them. And also having the iPhones and stuff like that over the years, there's not a remarkable difference between these things. Now, I've never gone above the, let's say, $400 price point or something like that in terms of DAPs. If you get up higher, could they sound better? I believe they probably could, but you're eking out like 10% difference at that point in time, right? And you're kind of grasping at straws for something that, if you have the money, go ahead and spend it. If you don't, then there's probably other ways that you can make things sound different, like buying different earphones or headphones. And that's really how you'll make a big sound difference. This is more about convenience. One other thing about this thing, I love the buttons. Just having the ability to play, pause, next, your volume rocker, and your hold on the side is amazing. You'll find you won't need to use the hold much because there's not going to be a lot of accidental clicking with the placement of the buttons, and they're sturdy enough that you're not going to accidentally hit them or turn up and down the volumes. The volume is 120 step, so you do have a lot of variance between volume levels if that's something you're into. I personally really like that to find just the right volume with a song or a record. That can be important. It's not the most powerful thing in the world, but I do find that I have no problem at all with things up to 150 ohms in terms of IEMs and earbuds. Now, something that is 64 ohm or higher could potentially use a little bit more power. At that point in time, you can strap a little amp to it if you want to make if you want to tug that along with you. I'm personally not really into that. But anyways, that's just a slight overview. Will I wait for stuff that's taking forever in the mail to show up to my door? There is a mail strike in Canada, so I won't bore you with the details, but it is taking forever for me to get IEMs and things like that I have on order. Hopefully they'll come soon. Anyways, that's it, man. Sony NWA35, but this is also the interface for the 45, the 55. I think they're pretty much the same, the WM1A, WM1Z, etc. So I just wanted to go over that. It's great. It's a wonderful interface, probably the best of breed. So that's it, man. Sounds great too. Anyways, cheers.